Welcome to Inside LaPorte Schools, where we focus on real conversations, clear answers, and one community. I'm Sandra Wood, Superintendent of the LaPorte Community School Corporation. Today, we're taking you inside the corporation through meaningful discussions with people who shape our educational community. Join us as we explore the stories and voices that make LaPorte schools unique. All right, well, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. So we have a very exciting topic to dive into today, and that is the topic of early childhood learning and preschool and all things related to early childhood education here at LaPorte Community Schools. So I'm excited to introduce our two guests today. We have Mrs. Becky Jeffers, who is here with us. She is the principal of Little Learners Preschool. Hi, Becky.
Hi,
welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we also have Mrs. Jeanette Raymond, who is here. She is one of our teachers at the preschool.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely. As we dive into this topic, obviously, this is a pretty timely topic, and we wanted to dive into this because there's been a lot of discussion about early childhood learning, as this has been a big part of our transition planning for the 25-26 school year, as we're looking at creating an early childhood center for our district. It's been something that's been in the works and been talked about for a number of years, and so we're now to the point that we are ready to develop the early childhood center to open next year. And so as we dive into that topic, I want to start just with an understanding of the history of the preschool program here in LaPorte. So just for reference and for those who are listening, I personally have been a parent with Little Learners Preschool since 2021. And so I've had one of my children has been in the preschool every year since the 2020-2021 school year. So I have some personal experience with the Little Learners program itself, but our preschool program is bigger than that. So we have a comprehensive preschool program throughout the district. And before we get into talking about the future of where we're going with early childhood learning, let's talk about where we've been. So Mrs. Jeffers, can you kind of start giving us an overview of the history of Little Learners and how it's evolved through the years?
Absolutely. So many are not aware, but Little Learners was actually established back in 1994. So that first year, they were housed at Hanley Elementary and as a pilot program, just to really see what the community needed as far as those preschool services. And immediately there was interest in the program. So it moved to what was previously called Park School, and at that point in time, they joined Project SHAPE. Project SHAPE was the program that served our students with special needs. So they both ran in that same site for many, many years, side by side, but not really offering services to one another. And then they were relocated in 2006. So at that point in time, when our general education preschool program, which I should say, Little Learners serviced the students ages 3 through 5 for the entire community of LaPorte. So we had, regardless of the district that you resided, you could attend that program. It was a fee-based program, and you could bring your child for either the morning or the afternoon session. And when we combined at the LaPorte High School, at that point in time, we decided to join forces. So Little Learners and Project SHAPE merged into just Little Learners because we wanted to offer inclusive opportunities to our students with disabilities, as well as to offer those services to general education because, of course, students can learn so much from one another. We resided at the high school for many years as that joint force, and then we were relocated to the Boston site in 2020. And that's where we currently reside.
So as we look at the current structure of Little Learners Preschool, it is primarily a special education program, correct? Most of the classes that are operating at Little Learners are special ed preschool classes.
Yes. So we currently have 7 classrooms total with a morning session and an afternoon. 2 of those are our inclusion programs. So we have one for 3-year-olds and then one for the 4-year-old / pre-K age.
Okay. And with it being part of the special education program, it's not only meeting the needs for children with LaPorte Community Schools, but also the districts around us that are part of our special education cooperative, correct?
Yes. So since we are a part of the cooperative, we service students that reside in the Tri-Township, South Central, Westville, LaPorte, and New Prairie districts. However, our highest number of enrollment is students that reside in LaPorte, for sure.
Okay. And Mrs. Raymond, how long have you been a preschool teacher with LaPorte Schools?
With LaPorte Schools, I've been here for 20 years, and I actually spent my first year teaching here in the pre-K class at Park School. So I did get to experience that for 1 year, which was an amazing thing. It was really sad to have to leave that home and move on, but we knew that there were lots of great things that we could do at the high school. And so we packed up and we moved over, and then we were at the high school for 14 years before we moved over to Boston. So I've been with the program for 20, and I'm excited about what's coming in the future.
And your classroom is one of the inclusion classes at the preschool. And so tell us just a little bit, for those who may be listening that aren't familiar with what inclusion means. Tell us, what does that mean for a preschool classroom?
So in our classroom, we have children that have individual education plans, or IEPs. They have been determined to have a learning disability or a special need. And we also have children that are typically developing that are within the Lincoln School District right now. When we were at the high school, we serviced the Hanley Elementary General Education Program. So it's been interesting to see the evolution of that, because like Mrs. Jeffers had mentioned, when I first started, we were servicing all of the schools in the corporation. So we kind of have whittled down to being more specific. But the beauty of the inclusion program for the children with special needs and the typically developing children are that they learn so much from each other. And they get to work together as a team. And they don't even feel the difference. They just feel like kids. These are my friends. These are my peers. We work together. And nobody really knows that there's any difference, which is the best thing about it. They're just enjoying being together, learning from each other, growing together, and they are taking the steps towards their education. And it's wonderful.
Absolutely. So at the Little Learners site, then we have 2 classrooms that are essentially the inclusion model, and that is servicing the general ed kids at Lincoln. So what about other elementaries currently? What are we offering as far as general ed preschool opportunities for elementary schools right now?
Sure. So in the LaPorte district right now, it's 7 of our elementaries, because the 8th elementary is being serviced at Little Learners. We offer pre-K programming. So that is primarily just for students that turn 4 on that August 1st deadline, and it is fully general education. So there are minimal inclusive opportunities in that program just because of our inability to provide all of the different therapy services and teaching needs, et cetera, off-site.
Okay. And that's a good point, is that a lot of times with our very young children, when they come in and have an IEP where they have an individualized education plan, a lot of times there's speech services involved. There might be physical therapy or occupational therapy that's involved in that. And so that's where having the Little Learners site allows us to be able to service the needs of all of those kids through those different types of therapies. So obviously our big news here is that we're moving toward a new model next year. And so, I think most of our community is aware that a big component of the plan that we've released for the changes that we have coming up for LaPorte Community Schools for the 25-26 school year has been the repurposing of Lincoln Elementary to become the early childhood center to service the entire district and to be able to provide preschool programming to our district as a whole from a centralized location. So a big question that people might be asking as they're listening to this, or maybe a question that people have asked themselves as they've heard all of the planning that we're going through right now. We already have preschool. We're already offering programs in our elementary schools. Why do we need to make a change? Why do we have to switch from what we're currently doing to this other new model? So tell us a little bit, as we transition to this model of the early childhood center, talk to us just a little bit about what we'll be able to offer through the early childhood center that right now we can't offer with the current model that we have, because we're offering a lot. But what will we be able to add? What's going to be the value add that we can bring through this early childhood center?
The biggest thing that stands out to me is it can offer programming for all. So right now, we do have very limited opportunities for inclusive practices at the Boston site. I also don't think our community realizes we have close to 190 students enrolled just at Little Learners alone. So we have a lot of little preschoolers walking in and out of our doors every day. So as we look forward to the future and look at that center, we see that we can offer more opportunities for general education preschool programming for 3-year-olds, which is not something that we offer right now. But on top of that, have that be an inclusion type of a setting. So many of our students right now with IEPs that are in a developmental classroom could participate and have those interactions with their general education peers. And then the same for our pre-K age students, just to have more classroom opportunities. Again, for 190 students at Little Learners, I only have one pre-K classroom. So the thought to be able to provide that to all is fantastic. Also having all those specialty services on site, whether it be occupational, physical therapists, autism consultants, behavior consultants, speech therapy. We have some fantastic programs that we offer at Little Learners. To be able to provide that to our entire community of preschool-aged children would be phenomenal. I think that collaboration is huge. So being able to work together, learn from one another. Right now, we have some phenomenal preschool teachers out in our elementary buildings, but they are the only classroom in that building. They are the only teacher in that site that actually teaches that subject area. So to be able to learn and grow from one another and just to continue to expand on our program offerings and opportunities, I think it's just a phenomenal thing to do.
So just to clarify, with the Early Childhood Center now, we're looking at an opportunity for, and when we say 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, what is the cutoff? So there's like a deadline, right, that you have to be 3 by
August 1st is typically
1st.
Our deadline, yes. So when we look at our 3-year-old classrooms, we will have a 2-day-a-week program or a 3-day-a-week program. So parents can choose from that. And then as far as the pre-K goes, we ask that you are 4 by August 1st.
Good. So that's and that's new. That's going to be something new, that a family that is looking for an early learning opportunity for their child that is 3 right now isn't having that opportunity, except for the small population that we are servicing through the families that currently reside within the Lincoln district that are able to participate in that one classroom that we have available through Little Learners. And that's the only opportunity for 3-year-olds. So this is a great benefit for our community now to be able to open up to the littles. And we know, of course, research tells us that the sooner children start participating in formalized early childhood learning, the better they perform, right? Moving in.
Absolutely. Early intervention is key. And we definitely saw that there is a need in this community because we always run a very long waiting list for our 3-year-old program. So we're hoping just to be able to reach out to more families to provide those opportunities. And they can choose, do I want to attend 2 days? Do I want to attend 3 days? But just to be able to interact with same age peers and have those developmentally appropriate practices, it's going to benefit all.
Yeah, most definitely. So I want to know a little bit more about the actual programming that we're utilizing at the Early Childhood Center, because especially when we think about 3-year-olds, and 3-year-olds are young and this is their first experience most times coming into a formalized setting with the educational process. Tell me about the curriculum that we're using in the preschool. And one of the things that I think that I've been impressed with, both as a parent and then, of course, as I've come into this role over the past few months, is that we have a really robust curriculum in place for our preschool, and it's cohesive across the district. It's been very intentional, and I know that it's a research-based curriculum. So I'm really interested to hear more specifically from Mrs. Raymond about the development of the program we're using and kind of the benefits you see from it.
Sure. In the program, we are utilizing the high scope curriculum, which is very research-based, and I believe it's 3rd on the list as far as the recommended curriculum to use in early childhood in our country. So that's really wonderful that we're using that high scope curriculum. But in the pre-K setting, we don't just use the high scope curriculum. We also use curriculum that is lending into what is happening in our elementary schools. So we are following the procedures of the Kendor program in the way that we look at letters and sounds, how we introduce them, and the basics for the foundation of understanding that Kendor program, which is rhyming. And then we also use what's called the Hegarty curriculum, and that, again, focuses on rhyming. It focuses on understanding the sounds that go with those symbols of the letters and how words come together, how words come apart. So we're excited to be able to meld all three of those curriculums together in giving our students the best opportunity that they can get prior to moving on to the elementary level. The high scope element is a very positive-based curriculum because the children take ownership for their learning. We guide them, but they also feel empowered and they feel important because they're getting to choose. And they're getting to say, today I want to start my work time in the doctor's office because I'm interested in learning all about all the tools, and I want to put the puzzle together to form the body, and I want to take the appointments down, and they'll be writing their names and writing their numbers to put their appointments in. And we say, that's great. That's wonderful. And when they're ready to move on, then they can move on. And if they're not sure what to move on to next, then we can step in and say, well, what are you thinking? What looks good? What are you thinking you would like to do right now? And then we can help guide them in their choices if they need that. But so often they don't need that guidance because they have a plan in place. And then they take everything that they have and they make everything come to life around them. And then we can step in as educators and take that learning to a different level. So if they choose to go over and build a castle with the bricks, we can sit down with them and we can just ask open-ended questions and get information from them as to where their thinking level is at. And we can also look at different academic levels. How many bricks are you using? Which side is taller? Which side is shorter? What happens if we take these bricks away? How many you have left? So it's really a wonderful opportunity for them to guide their learning and for us to step in and really see where they're at and then take it from there. So it's really a wonderful opportunity.
Well, and I can share now, I'll switch hats then and talk a little bit just about from my parent perspective, because I, having been a parent, have a unique perspective, and I've had the opportunity to see the growth in my two boys as they've been involved in the preschool program. And one of the things that I've recognized is the combination of the independence and the confidence that I see that's really developed and grown through my boys, just because, like you said, you're empowering them to have choice in their day, but it's guided choice. Right. It's not free play.
Absolutely.
It's empowering the children to take an active role in how they're shaping their time, but it's very structured within that. And so they are learning, but they're also building so many of those soft skills that are going to be so important to their success in kindergarten, and that they are going to enter kindergarten as confident and enabled learners to be able to really take control of their education.
Exactly.
And so I think that's really awesome. And the other thing that I would add is I also have a kindergartner this year. So I have my youngest is in pre-K, my oldest is in kindergarten. And so I have seen the integration of what you're incorporating with some of those kindergarten skills through Kendor and through the early literacy learning. As we're recording this, we just came off of a few e-learning days that we had some work that had to be done at home. And my oldest had some kindergarten work that, was the Kendor curriculum. And we were doing some phonics things and some rhyming things. And my youngest was sitting while we were doing the kindergartner's work, and he was able to participate because he knew. He knew the thumbs up and the thumbs down is for rhyme, doesn't rhyme, and that kind of thing. And so I just had that experience and thought about how great that's going to be for him when he gets to kindergarten, that he already has that foundational learning in place.
Exactly. And that is the purpose of integrating that Kendor and that Hegarty in, because they are getting exposed to the things that they are going to be seeing as they enter into the elementary level. And just one of the things that you had just mentioned is the building from each other. I witnessed something today that was just the coolest thing, and it goes with the inclusion and everything that we've been talking about. We had some STEM time, and I had two kiddos that were working at a table together, and they were building with different size, color, and shape blocks. One of those students has an IEP, and one of those students is a typically developing gen ed kiddo. And they were working across from each other, and they actually figured out how to mimic their creations to look exactly like each other's. And it was such a cool thing because it was what they chose. It was how they chose to do it. And they were working as a team to figure out, what do you need to do to make it look like mine? And now I'll do this. What do you need to do to make it look like mine? And they were the exact mirror image. And that was such wonderful creativity, and the learning process that went along with that was just beyond. And I took a picture of it and I said, this is great. We have to make sure to share this with your families because, wow, what a really cool thing that you just created.
That is such a cool story. And that also, like, in my mind, what I'm thinking about is like, that is relevant K through 12. That story that you just shared is you are building teamwork skills in these kids that might have different learning styles and might have different perspectives, but the reality is as they progress through their education in the coming years, they are going to encounter so many more different opportunities, and it's not going to be with blocks in a preschool classroom, but it's going to be something similar where they're going to utilize that skill that they just showed you today in a different way. And one day in their career, they're going to do that. You know, we talk about all the time the importance of building those soft skills and the teamwork and being able to work with other individuals who are different from you and who may come with different perspectives, and being able to adapt and collaborate together. It's just such a neat example of how we're building those things from the earliest years, and that's going to transfer through to success down the line.
Absolutely.
I think that's one of the exciting things about the center is to be able to provide those opportunities to build those relationships. So we're building relationships with students all throughout the community. So someone that doesn't live in the same area as them, they might not look the same, they might not speak the same, all the different things, but ultimately they're all preschoolers just there for the common purpose of learning and growing together. Something additionally that we're looking to offer at the center that we've been talking about for many years, and we just haven't had the space or the ability to provide it, is Transitional Kindergarten Classroom, or a TK program. Really looking at kind of bridging that gap for students that aren't quite ready, that are exiting pre-K, but they're not ready for a kindergarten year. So that's something that most corporations do not offer. We've heard of T1 in the past and so forth, but they often don't offer that TK. So that's something really excited to be able to provide to our students. And Mrs. Raymond, I know specifically with your work with students that are in the pre-K class and exiting to go on to kindergarten, you know, we've talked about you've seen the benefits as well.
Right. Yeah, so often there are just some kiddos that aren't quite ready for the rigors of kindergarten. And we think of kindergarten and we know it's not just all work, work, work. There is time for them to play and time for them to move and explore and do their own thing. But there's a lot of requirements on kiddos when they enter kindergarten, and a lot of expectations, as there should be for those that are really ready for it. But so often we find these kiddos that they're just not quite ready for that, either socially and emotionally, or maybe on that side of not being able to really handle some of the workload that comes to them in the kindergarten setting. And so a TK program would be one of those, like Mrs. Jeffers mentioned, to bridge the gap for those kiddos that just quite aren't ready for that rigor of kindergarten, and give them a little bit more time in an atmosphere where you can combine that high scope element still and give them that time to do that free exploration, to make those choices and to build on their learning based on what they're comfortable with and what they're wanting to do, but also to really kind of work on those kindergarten skills that they're maybe haven't solidified yet. And so it would show the day to be a model of what is to come in kindergarten for them, just to get them ready for that, but also the time where they can just be those preschoolers again, because they're not quite ready, whether it's their age or their development or their maturity or just where they are in their academic learning. So I think it's a really exciting opportunity. As Mrs. Jeffers said, we've been hoping to be able to offer something like this for so long, and there's just hasn't been the opportunity with the space and having the center. We're really excited that this might be something that we can offer these children to just give them one more year to grow. In the past, we have said, let's get these kids in full day. If we immerse them full day, that it's going to help. It's going to be better. And for some, it probably is. And for some, it just takes a toll on them. And rather than maybe struggle with kindergarten and feel uncomfortable and not so confident in what they can do, and maybe have a feeling of, gosh, I don't want to go to school today because it's just too much, give them that extra year to grow. And then when they are to that point that they're really ready, they feel more comfortable and more confident and stronger, and then they can move on.
That's awesome. We mentioned before just how important it is to make sure that kids are getting off on a good, solid foundation for that first year of kindergarten. It really sets the tone for their entire educational career. And we just know that there are always kiddos that just aren't quite ready. And we want to ensure that we're starting them off on solid ground, on the right foot, so that they have the best opportunity for success. And this is really an awesome way that we can meet the need for students that need just additional time. That's great that we'll be able to potentially offer this as long as we end up having the space available and the need. One of the conversations that we have had a lot in regards to preschool programming has been ensuring that we have a program that's accessible to people. And this was something that was brought to me pretty early on when I came into my position here, in that with our current preschool setup, we offer a half-day program. And that is at Little Learners. That's at our programs that are within the elementary buildings. We offer a morning session from, 8:30, 8:45 to 10:30, 11 o'clock or so on. And then an afternoon session from noon to 3. And so families that are participating in preschool right now have to work that out with the middle of the day need to either pick the children up or have arrangements for someone to pick them up. And that can be a challenge for some of our families that have working adults in the family that can't make that work. And so we started the conversation really early on with how can we offer a preschool program that enables families who work to still access the program, because our goal with all of this is to remove all the barriers so that every family within LaPorte Community Schools can participate in early childhood education. So that was one of the opportunities, I think, that we looked at. And now moving forward with the center, we're excited to do some planning, and we don't have details worked out right now, of course, but we anticipate that we're going to be able to offer a daycare to work in conjunction with the preschool programming. So we don't have details on this right now. So that is something that I know there are specific questions out there, and we just don't have the answers to those yet. Mrs. Jeffers, can you tell us just overall, how do you see the center logistically working to meet the needs of the families that have a 9-to-5 job and we work, and so we need to be able to drop our child off for the whole day?
Right. We did see in some of our data collection that we were losing some students because it wasn't feasible for a parent to leave midday from work or wherever they may be. So we are hoping to be able to offer before school, during the day, and then an after school type of childcare program. So for instance, if you have a student attending your preschool program in the morning and the class starts at 8 a.m., but mom or dad has to be to work at 8 a.m., we would have that opportunity for them to drop off their child for the childcare in the morning. Then they would just walk right down the hall to their preschool classroom. And then at the end of the preschool day, they would be taken back to the childcare setting for the rest of the afternoon or to whenever mom or dad could pick up. So we're going to take away that midday transportation that was eliminating the possibility for everyone to participate. We're still working out the details, but to be able to offer that childcare component, we feel is definitely a need for the community.
Absolutely. I think that that's going to be a great opportunity and hopefully will open the door for many more families to be able to participate, because the reality is we really believe in the program that we have for our preschoolers, and we want to be able to offer that to as many families as possible. As we're diving in then, we mentioned there's a lot of questions that we still don't have answers to. I want to address just a little bit about where are we going next and how is this all going to play out in the coming months. And so typically in the month of March, we would do like a preschool roundup. We would have parents come in and they would register. And so I think it's important to just have a little bit of discussion here on how that process is going to look for this year, because it will be a little bit different, because part of the challenge for this very first year is that we don't have baseline data. So we know anecdotally, we've had a lot of people tell us that they need childcare, but we don't know how many families need childcare. And so for us to be able to work on some planning, we need to gather information from our families first. So in the month of February, we're going to be rolling out our preschool roundup. I think that's scheduled for February 19th.
Yes.
And that's going to be a virtual opportunity for families to fill out a form. It's going to basically allow us an opportunity just to gauge interest in what programming they're looking at. It's going to give us a baseline of numbers. How many children are we looking at for our 3-year-old program? How many for the 4-year-old program? How many are interested in childcare and that kind of thing? And then also the other thing that we want to look at is, do we have a need for satellite locations? So we've determined that the Early Childhood Center is going to be our main campus for early childhood learning in LaPorte Community Schools. But as we mentioned previously, our goal here is to make preschool accessible for as many families as possible. And at the end of the day, we have to acknowledge the fact that geographically, our district is huge. We're one of the largest districts geographically in the state of Indiana. And so I think it's like 170 square miles that we cover. And so realistically, we have to ask the question, is one early childhood center in the center of the city of LaPorte manageable for all of our families? And so can you talk to us just a little bit about what we're going to ask parents to share with us in regards to their ability to participate based on geography with that roundup process that we're going to put out in February?
Absolutely. So as we navigate through this process of opening the center, we do want to have that data collection piece. So we want to know, is there a morning, afternoon preference? Do you have transportation barriers to where you could not get your child to and from school? Are there the child care needs? Really just looking very closely at where the individuals that are needing preschool programming reside and then what their specific needs are to hopefully tailor as much as possible. Again, we want to make this preschool programming accessible to as many as possible. We don't want to limit those opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that once we have some information, then we'll be able to better determine if we have a need for, let's say, a north and a south satellite location that operates out of one or two of our current elementary schools, and that helps to meet a need in those segments of our community. Then we want to look at that and we want to be cognizant of what the biggest needs are. Another question that I wanted to dive into briefly is just how we structure preschool in regards to tuition. Let's talk about some of the details that are associated with preschool at LaPorte schools. So we don't charge tuition. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We don't charge tuition to any student.
Correct. Whether you are attending the Little Learners site or one of the elementary preschool programs, we currently do not charge tuition.
And Mrs. Jeffers, I know that you've done a lot of research regarding other preschool programs that exist in our surrounding area, not only within our county, but I know you've even expanded beyond that and looked at, all of Northwest Indiana and the different programs that exist. Is that common?
Actually, it's not. So typically, most preschool programs are either fee-based or they accept vouchers to pay for the program.
And that was my experience from other districts that I've been in, is that most preschool programs are charging tuition. We are very fortunate at LaPorte that we're not doing that. And that's made possible through some of our federal grant dollars that we utilize through Title I. But also we have an endowment that we were gifted a number of years ago. And so for the time being, we are able to provide those preschool services at no cost to families. The reality is that may not be the case forever. one day that endowment will run dry and we will have to then look at other opportunities. Do you have plans to pursue accreditation so that if and when that time comes in the near future, we would be able to accept vouchers for families?
So that is one of the big goals for the opening of the center, is to start that accreditation process. And like you said, it does open up avenues for a voucher system if we were to ever need to become a pay program. But not only that, but accreditation says so much about the program and what we have to offer. It means that the LaPorte Community School Corporation is offering preschool programming to the highest of standards, whether it be through our curriculum, through our safety measures, through our sanitization process, through our community professional developments with families, with staff. It really means we are looking to provide the best of the best. So it's quite a process to undergo for accreditation, and it's a lot of hard work, but it definitely, I feel that the students of our district are worth it to show that we want to be the very best that we possibly can be.
So one additional piece that I think families may be eager to know more about, especially as we look at this transition and what all of this is going to mean for families moving forward now with the model of the center, and perhaps if numbers show a need for it, the potential for a couple satellite locations in our further geographic areas of our community. But what about transportation? So I know that right now, this is something that we are offering to families one way. So our preschool families that are enrolled in classes that are in the elementary buildings have the opportunity to be on the bus in the morning session on the way to school or at the end of the day on the way home. How are we working through transportation planning for preschool for next year?
As we're navigating through everything, we're looking to see all the routes filtering in. Not only do you have to have the correct number of buses and routes running and so forth, but there are laws put into place for preschool age students. So all the children have to sit in a 5-point harness car seat, which of course the corporation does provide. At this time, the transportation department feels that it would be best to only provide transportation to those students that have that written directly into their IEP. So we would provide to and from for students with IEP, but then we would ask, as many other school corporations do that offer preschool programming, for parents to provide that pickup and drop-off service.
So it's fair to say that preschool transportation brings challenges. Obviously, first and foremost, the issue of having to have the buses equipped with the proper equipment for preschool-age children is a challenge, especially when we're looking at an early childhood center model. But additionally, we don't have an obligation to transport preschool children, and we are aware that our transportation department is already limited in our ability to, just because of the geographic size of our district. And so obviously there are challenges with that. The positive piece of this is that if transportation is not something we're able to offer, we have the childcare opportunity. Right. We will have the opportunity for families that are going to have difficulty with the timing of the transportation that would be needed to drop or pick up children, to be able to do that in a way that works with their schedule because of the childcare that's offered. Okay, so I want to summarize then, just to recap, what comes next, and it's going to be that first step is the interest survey that we're calling Preschool Roundup, that will be released to families on February 19th. And so for our families that are listening that have preschoolers that they are interested in enrolling, I want to really encourage you to please fill out that survey and give us as much information as you can so that we can better finalize some of our planning. And just for clarification, it is an information gathering process. Right now, we have not confirmed, correct? We have not finalized.
Right. We do not have that location if we were to offer satellite locations. I'm still working through all the details of childcare and so forth, but just really capturing the needs of the community is what we need right now as we look to open the center, and we can determine from there the registration process and securing those spots.
So again, just an appeal to everyone who's listening, please make sure to fill out that survey when it's released on February 19th. Provide the information so that we can utilize that. We want all of our planning to be very data-based and to be reflective of the need of the community. That's how we can best ensure that we are meeting the need, is to get as much feedback as possible through that process, and then we'll be releasing after that. And once we've finalized a few more of the details, I would anticipate March or April, we'll be ready then to actually start the registration process and be ready to move forward with actually getting kiddos assigned into classrooms for next year. This is really exciting. I'm really excited, not only just in all of the planning that we've been able to do together to really build and put together this vision that's existed for a number of years for our district, and now actually to see this coming together to be something that we can provide to our community. But also as a parent, I'm excited because I believe very strongly in the program that we have, and I think that this is going to be a way to really elevate it to the next level. Okay, well, that's our episode. I want to extend a special thank you to the LaPorte County Public Library Exchange. We are utilizing their audio studio here at the Exchange to record our podcast, and we greatly appreciate our partnership with them and the ability for our entire community to utilize this amazing opportunity for free. So we encourage you to check it out. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Inside LaPorte Schools. We hope you enjoyed hearing the stories that shape our community. Remember, this podcast is about you, your schools, your stories, your community. Stay connected, stay informed, and be proud of the difference we're making together.